Hello students, and welcome to the final video of this lesson. In this fourth video, we're going to continue to use the quotient rule, but we're going to look at it when we're looking at graphs and tables. So let's get started. So here I'm given the graph of f of x and the graph of g of x. And we're also going to be using these functions p and r. What I want you to notice about p of x and r of x is that first p of x is given two functions, f of x divided by g of x. But the second one is sine of x over f of x. So you're going to want to be very careful as you approach these problems, but they're going to just be applications of the quotient rule like we've been learning. So here in this first part, we want to find p prime of 5. So what I want to start with is, okay, let's find p prime of x. All right, so that's going to be low, so g of x, d high, so f prime of x, minus high, so f of x, d low, so g prime of x. And then I want to square the bottom, so square that denominator, so g of x squared, and away we go. Okay, and so that's a common way that people memorize this. Okay, and so we're going to go p prime of 5, and we're going to get, all right, what is g of 5? F prime of 5 minus f of 5, g prime of 5, and then g of 5 squared. And what you're going to notice is that this is a very close, very common to what we did when we were doing the product rule in our previous lesson, okay? So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to look at g of x, and I want to find g of 5, okay? I'm going to get that value, and that value is going to be positive 5. And then f prime of 5, so here I'm looking at the slope here because it says prime, so derivative. And what I notice here is that the slope is down 1 over 2, so negative 1/2. Okay, minus f of 5. All right, so f of 5, so I want to grab just that. And that looks like it's negative 3.5 or negative 7/2. So negative 7/2. And then g prime of 5, and that slope is up 1 over 1. And so that's going to get multiplied by 1. And then g of 5 I just found, so that's going to be 5 squared. All right, and so what I want to get here is I see that I get negative 5/2 plus 7/2 over 25. All right, so negative 5/2 plus 7/2, actually let me bring it down there. Negative 5/2 plus 7/2 is 2 over 2, which is 1. So I end up with 1 over 25. So that's going to be p prime of 5. And we're going to use that in this next question here, where we're going to find the equation of the tangent line to the graph of p of x when x equals 5. So we've already done some of the work. We found the slope of the tangent line, which is p prime of 5, which we just found in our previous example, and that was 1 over 25. So now what I want to do is I want to find that point of tangency, which means I need to find p of 5, because I know the x value is 5, but I want to find the y value. All right, and so that's going to be f of 5 over g of 5. All right, from here I'm going to get negative 3.5 over 5. And if I double both of those, I get negative 7/10, right? Just to get a nice clean fraction. So that's going to be the y value. And if I find the equation of the tangent line, that's going to be y minus the y value, so plus 7/10, equals my slope, 1 over 25, and then x minus my x value, which is 5. And that's going to be the equation of the tangent line to p of x. Remember, p of x is a composition of two separate functions, f on g. And we don't know what the graph of p of x looks like without going through a lot more work. But with this, we can still find the derivative and the slope of the equation of the tangent line to the graph of p of x at at positive 5. So now we're going to bring it over here to r prime of 0. And so again, like I just did with p, I want to find, okay, what is r prime of x going to be? And so I'm going to want to use the quotient rule. So that is going to be f of x times the derivative of sine, which is cosine of x, minus sine of x times the derivative of f, which is f prime of x. And then my denominator, I'm going to square that just like this. All right, so now let's substitute in 0. So I want to find, okay, r prime of 0, and that's going to be f of 0 cosine of 0 minus sine of 0 f prime of 0. And then I'm going to get, all right, f of 0 squared. All right, so go and get these from the graph, see if they match up. So f of 0 is -5, cosine of 0 is 1 from the unit circle, sine of 0 is 0, so 0 times f prime is 0. It doesn't really matter what f prime comes out to be, that's going to get multiplied by 0. So it's going to be -0, and then f of 0 is -5, and we want to square this. So I get -5 over 25, which I can simplify to be -1/5. All right, and I'm going to use that again in my next problem, where I want to find the equation of the tangent line to the graph of r of x at x equals 0, which is nice because that's what we just found. We found the slope of the tangent line for r of x at 0. So r prime of 0, which came out to be -1/5. So now I just need to find that point of tangency. So that's going to be r of 0, which I'm going to go sine of 0 over f of 0. And sine of 0 is 0, and f of 0, let me see what that's going to be. F of 0 is -5, so I'm going to pull that value down. So -5, and this comes out to be 0. So when I write out my equation, it's going to be y minus 0 equals my slope, so -1/5, and then x minus 0. So I really want to simplify this a little bit, so y equals -1/5 x. And that's going to be the equation of the tangent line. Again, we don't know what r looks like, r of x looks like, but we can still find its derivative at points. We can still find the equation of tangent lines at those points of tangency. Now we're going to move into an example where we're going to be given a table. All the information that we're given here is in a table, and we're going to be using these values in these next 4 problems. So as we're going through this first one, if I want to find g prime of 2.5, right, we just want to estimate it. Okay, so g prime of 2.5, so that's going to be g of 3 minus g of 2. And the reason I'm getting g of 3 and g of 2 is because basically when we're doing an estimate, we just want to use the points around it. And so 2.5 happens somewhere in between 2 and 5. So then I just go y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So g of 3 comes out to be -3, and g of 2 is -1. So I get -3 plus 1 over 1, which is -2. So g prime of 2.5 is approximately, without more information, we can only use this approximation, which is approximately equal to -2. And so now what I want to do is I want to go into a little bit more in depth in this question, okay? So when I'm doing this, I want to find what is the value of p prime of 4. So the first thing I've got to do is find p prime of x, and that's an application of the quotient rule. So f of x times g prime of x minus g of x times f prime of x. And then I square f of x. All right, so when I find p prime of 4, that's f of 4 times g prime of 4. And this is where that table is going to come in really handy. Minus g of 4, f prime of 4, and then f of 4 squared. All right, so let's see what I get from these. So f of 4 is 1. So I'm going to get 1 times g prime of 4. So here's 4, and I get the g prime value, so that's going to be -2. So that's going to be times -2. All right, and then a minus g of 4. So there's g, here's 4, so that's going to be 7. And then times f prime of 4. So there's f prime, there's 4, and this is going to be 8 times 8 over f of 4, so 1 squared. And so this is why I really like the table stuff, because it's kind of like Wham, bam, bam, you're just grabbing numbers. Once you know the derivative, it's just like a scavenger hunt. How quickly can you find all of it? Now it kind of takes me back to like, where's Waldo? Like, where can I find all of it? And so as I do this, I get -2 minus 56. So that's negative 58 over 1. So I get negative 58 in total. But I want to take this a step further here, and I want to say, okay, what does that mean? What does that say about our graph? And we want to take it back to our last module, our last unit, where we were making statements, okay? So what can you say about the graph of P now that we know that the derivative is negative, okay? So what we can say is P of X is decreasing at X equals 4 because, and why do we know this? And we know this because P prime of 4 is negative, is less than 0, right? Because negative 58. So you do need to be able to make those conclusions based off of the derivatives that you're finding. Okay, here in this next example, what you want to notice is that we're kind of given a rule within a rule, a rule next to a rule, because I have to use the product rule. I have one function multiplied by a second function, okay? And so when I do this, I want to find Q prime of 2, but I need to find Q prime of X first. So I'm going to have to use the product rule. So the derivative of the first, so 2x squared, so that's derivative is 4x times the second, so times f of x on g of x, plus the first, so 2x squared, times the derivative of the second part. And the second part right here is right where we need to use, because we want to find this derivative, and that's where we have to use our quotient rule. So a quotient rule within a product rule. All right, so as I do this, it's going to be low, so g of x times f prime of x minus f of x times g prime of x. Square the bottom, and there we go. All right, so now it's all about, okay, so that's the derivative. So now I want to find Q prime of 2. All right, so as I'm finding this, that's 4 times 2 right there. So that's going to get me 8, and then f of 2 and g of 2. Plus 2 squared is 4 times 2, so that's 8 again, and then g of 2, f prime of 2, minus f of 2, g prime of 2 over g of 2 squared. All right, so I get 8, and then from your graph, you're gonna get f of 2 is 2, and g of 2 is -1, plus 8, and then we've got to fill out all of these things. So I get -1 for g of 2 times 9 minus 2 times -1 all over -1 squared. Oh, I guess I switched it up to parentheses there. Okay, so let's go through this. I get 8 times -2, so that's -16, plus 8 times, let's see, that's -1 times 9, that's -9, plus 2, which is -7, over 1, so times -7. All right, so essentially this is -16 minus 56. So that's going to be -72. And again, just think about, what did we find? So we have a function q of x, and we're able to determine what's happening. We know it's decreasing at +2 when x is +2. Now I want to take it over to our final example where we're going to find the equation of the tangent line to this graph. So we had 3 of x on g of x, and we're going to find it when x equals 3. All right, so first let's find our point of tangency, right? So we're going to find v of 3, and that's going to be equal to 3 times 3 over g of 3. All right, so g of 3. So that's going to get me 9 over, and let me go find g of 3 real quick. So g of 3 is right here, and that's going to be -3. So 9 divided by -3. And so I get -3 for that y value. Now I want to find the slope of the tangent line. And in order to do that, I need to find v prime of x. And that's going to be quotient rule. So low, d high, so derivative of 3x is 3, minus high, so 3x, d low, so derivative of g of x is g prime, square g of x, and we're good to go. Kind of feel like I'm always changing that last line every single time I say it. All right, so now we want to find, okay, v prime of 3, and so that's going to be g of 3 times 3 minus 3 times 3, which is 9, times g prime of 3. Let me go find that real quick. G prime, so here's 3 right here, and g prime of 3 is 6. Okay, so that's going to be times 6, and then I get g of x squared. So g of x, so g of 3 squared. All right, let's see what I get here. So g of 3 is -3 times 3. So I get -3 times 3 minus 9 times 6, so minus 54, over g of 3 is 3 squared, sorry, -3 squared. Okay, so I get -9 minus 54 over 9, and I get -63 over 9. That's looking good. All right, so -63 over 9 is -7. And that's going to be my slope for the tangent line of v when x equals +3. Okay, so now I have to write my equation down. All right, so that's going to be y minus the y value that I found, so -3, so y plus 3 equals my slope, so -7 times x minus the x value, which is +3. So x minus 3. And that is going to be the equation of v of x, the equation of the tangent line to v of x at x equals 3. So really keep in mind what we're finding and the different rules, right? So nothing's really changed, but there are different rules that we're introducing. This is all about the quotient rule, but notice here that you can tie in product rules with quotient rules, and you want to really just do that scavenger hunt quickly, get through this process quickly, and really just know that you can multiply and divide quickly, right? None of these are calculator questions, all right? So keep that in mind. If you are struggling on how to get this from the graphs, how to get this from the tables, and it's not little mistakes, and you're really like, I have no idea how to attack this problem, please reach out to me. I am here to help y'all. I'm always here to help. I'm Mr. Hernandez, and this was Mr. Hernandez Teacher.